Can you keep up with the pace of market regulatory reform? MarketsReformWiki.com, the place to keep up.
What does the global macroeconomic outlook for natural gas look like to you?
Right now we have a glut of natural gas, but that doesn't dissuade me from being excited about this market over the long term. What we're seeing with this new technology of fracking and production is going to change our energy universe. It has changed our energy universe. And for me, I think, what we thought, everything we thought about oil, peak natural gas, has changed. And to me, that means a very bright future, not only for the natural gas market, but for the U.S. economy as a whole. We saw this huge movement to start importing liquefied natural gas. And then all of a sudden, somebody, boom, came up with a better mousetrap. Somebody looked at this problem and discovered this new discovery, and it really changed our way and our dynamic. Instead of building import facilities for natural gas, we have to turn them around because now we're going to be a major exporter. Because of that, we're going to change the ways that we produce automobiles in the future because there's going to be more demand for natural gas because we're going to have an abundant supply. And instead of losing manufacturing jobs to places around the globe, we're going to be building manufacturing in this country because we're going to be able to supply an unending supply of cheap, affordable, clean natural gas.
The U.S. is sitting atop massive shale gas reserves. So what's the future for shale gas?
I think we're going to find more and more as time goes on. I think the technology is going to get better. I think that the concerns about its impact on the environment are going to change. And if you look at the biggest issues, people are concerned that it causes earthquakes or that the water and the chemicals that you're using are polluting the ground. I think at the end of the day, we're going to find out most of that's not true. And if it is true, they're going to find ways to fix those problems. It's abundant, and it's going to reduce the amount of emissions in the air. So whether if you're really worried about greenhouse gases and if you're worried about global warming, natural gas is probably the most viable solution.
How do you see the Canadian oil sands and pipelines issue sorting out?
Canada's made it very clear that they're going to produce that oil anyway. Why? Because there's a strong global demand for it. Places like China and India will be more than happy to buy every drop of oil that the United States chooses not to buy. So while you may be making a stand by trying to stop that oil sand production, at the end of the day, it's not going to help the environment. In fact, perhaps if the U.S. was a major buyer of Canadian oil, they would have more influence with the Canadian producers on how they produce it and how they capture that carbon. So I would feel more comfortable doing business with Canada and putting environmental pressure on them from a position of strength.
What's your outlook for carbon?
If the carbon market stays low for an extended period of time, people are going to start asking their questions, why do we have this market in the first place? And maybe the market forces at some point would have put us in that direction. So I think if you look at that market, unlike a lot of the other markets, it may lose some of its bust. Now we know Europe, of course, is very, very adamant in their belief in global warming and those concerns, and they're taking major steps. And as you point out, we're changing the energy mix around the globe. But where are we going to replace the fuels that we're trying to get rid of? And that's where the question comes in. Now, of course, in the United States, we're lucky. We have the fracking and the natural gas that's been very successful, and that's going to probably be the major factor in the U.S. It's going to change the energy dynamic. I think that's going to be a major provider of our fuel, a lot more than people even realize today.
What does the U.S. energy mix look like to you as we go forward?
We've changed the energy dynamic in this country. Instead of being an oil importer, we're exporting petroleum products for the first time since the 1940s. If you look at the big picture of where we're going, wind and solar, they may play a part. Biomass, I think, is going to play a bigger part. But at the end of the day, you're going to still be dependent mainly on oil and natural gas.
Do you think the Pickens plan will still work going forward?
No, I don't, to be honest with you. And the problem with the Pickens plan is the success of natural gas. It made it obsolete. It was great in theory when we had a limited supply of natural gas. It became outdated, of course, when now we have an abundance of supply.